People are fed up with SaaS subscriptions stacking up, and they're starting to demand the option to just own their software, run it on their own server, pay once, and be done. Enterprise customers especially are pushing this because compliance requirements often make your cloud version a non-starter. Whether you're running a self-hosted tier to your SaaS, running a hybrid cloud with a self-hosted option, or you're vibe coding a side project and you don't want the liability of hosting other people's data, this is for you. The key ingredient is shipping applications as containers. Docker already has authentication built in. Self-Host Pro plugs straight into that. When customer buys, they get credentials. When they cancel, those credentials stop working. No license server, no webhooks, no manual management. I'm going to walk you through the entire setup, pushing your image, connecting Stripe, and watching a customer install your software with a single command. Let's take a look at what it looks like from the SaaS developer's perspective on what it takes to upload their product to Self-Host Pro. So if I click add product, let's just put down example, and then you're allowed to add your website. So I could do https://example.com. Let's put down like support@selfhostpro.com. And these are just really helpful links to help guide your users on where to either connect with your community or get extra help. And then you can just easily set your product logo. Now, once we have a product available, you can see that it's in this draft mode. So the first thing we need to do is get a Docker image uploaded to Self-Host Pro. And it's pretty straightforward. You can just hit go to images here. And we're basically going to be uploading to a private registry that's shpcr.io for Self-Host Pro Container Registry. And then we'll log in with our credentials that allows us to write to that registry. And then we will get our product ready for deployment. So pretty straightforward. We give you all the commands here. And in this example, I'm just going to use a Laravel application. This is a Laravel PHP application. Now, Self-Host Pro works with any type of language or framework. So if you can put it into a Docker container, you can upload it to Self-Host Pro. Now, you can see that if I paste this in, it's going to ask me for my username, which is just simply going to be your email address. And then we will generate an access token. We'll just call this test. We will need read and write permissions. So we're just going to hit write or read and write on that. And then we'll paste this in. And now my machine is ready to be uploaded. Now we'll cover in the future, we actually have this example here. I'll link to the GitHub repository below. This is where GitHub Actions will automatically publish this for us. So from this example, I'm just going to upload directly from my machine. So I have this token in a safe spot, and now I should be able to copy this and paste this in. Now there's only one change I need to make to this command, and that's specific to my project, is I'm running Node and PHP for my project, and I have two different Docker files. So all I'm going to do is just come back, do a -f dockerfile.php, and make sure that I press enter to submit it, and it will start the build. So it only took about a minute to upload my application, and when we go back to Self-Host Pro, you can see that the image is now available. Our next step is what we're going to do is create what are called variations. So think of variations of, like, if you want to sell maybe my app 2026 and then my app 2027, or maybe you want a lifetime version. Those are the different types of variations. It's similar to like adding a t-shirt to an e-commerce store. So we're just going to create one variation. We'll just call this example. And then I'm just going to put once. I'm going to sell this rather than in a subscription. I'm going to sell this as a buy once application. And you can see that when you hit add product, we have it connected to Stripe, where I can choose between if I want to do something that's monthly or yearly, or I could do a one-time purchase. Now, what's cool with this is if you do something that you select a subscription, the access for the customer will directly sync to their subscription. So if they cancel, then that's when they will lose access to their product. But if you do a one-time purchase, you're kind of in a flexible position here, because you could set it to never expires, or I could say maybe this expires after 365 days. This is helpful if you want to sell the product once, and they could continue to run it forever, but they will just lose updates after 365 days. So I'm just going to show that. We'll add that here. And then now I can get into advanced image tagging rules. And this is pretty cool because this allows you to do what's called version gating. So back to the example of if we want to do example app or my app 2026, and then I sell that, I can say, all right, they have access to version 2026, and then just put a star there. It's basically anything that's tagged with 2026, they have access to. And then I could create another variation for 2027 and then gate the buyer into which access they purchased. In this example, I'm just going to hit all tags for now. And then this function here, so as you're creating like these 2026 versions, these 2027 versions, maybe you have people who pay a higher price and they do a lifetime, and you want to be able to just automatically update them to the next version. That's where you could mirror one variation to another. So I could say my lifetime is mirrored to my 2026. Then when 2027 hits, I can change that over to they now have access to 2027. And the other thing that's important for your users is you need to communicate what type of stack or what level of hardware they need to be running here. Most basic applications are good with 1 core, 1 gig, and 20 gig of space. So we default that for you, but you can change that based off your needs. And then based off this version, which tag do we want them to be able to install by default? We're going to choose latest. Now, in this section, this is where we're going to start on how Self-Host Pro all works. The biggest thing about Self-Host Pro is it's very Docker native. We follow the Docker standards as much as we can. And in this example, I'm just going to paste in a Docker Compose file that works well for the demo app that I'm running. Now, I like to keep these Docker Compose files as simple as possible. The nice thing, at least in the case of Laravel PHP and what runs called Franken PHP, is it bakes in the caddy server with serving PHP. So we're able to put everything all in one container, and that will give us the HTTPS that we need for a really good and secure user experience. Now, the really cool thing about Self-Host Pro is when they make these purchases, how do we know which version or which tag they want to be pulling down? Well, we put in this little magic environment variable. All you do is set Self-Host Pro version, and we will automatically fill out your container repository with the tag of latest and automatically paste that in there. Now, with the nature of getting things set up, so looking in this Docker Compose file, we do have some persistent data in here, but in the reality world of deploying Docker applications out there, we need it to be very easy for users to get onboarded. And we give you a ton of critical features that will help you on that. So the first thing we're going to do is when the user installs the application, we're going to prompt them for the app URL. Now, this is very important because we automatically will grab the app URL, so that will include the HTTP or the HTTPS, but then we also work off of this to give you an app domain that you can use within your file. And you can see that's what I'm using here of we have app domain and app URL. In this case, this is communicating to Laravel, and in this case, we have the app domain communicating to Caddy. And this is where we're going to perform some magic here to get a trusted SSL certificate without any user interaction. Now, most applications may also need additional configuration files. We give you a ton of flexibility in this area. all you have to do is hit add configuration. In our example, we need a default Laravel environment variable file. We even allow you to give certain permission levels. So we could do 600, and then just based off of our container, our application is running as the user ID of 33 and the group ID of 33, which is just the www data user. And then we can paste in just this basic getting started Laravel env. And if you want, you could even prompt the user to edit this environment variable file, but in this example, we won't need that. And then the other reality that we have is we're going to need some initialization commands here. So we're just going to hit add command. Just based off the image that we're running, we have some environment variables to kind of prevent some extra noise from coming up. So we're saying showing a welcome message of false. And then what we need to do is, in Laravel's case, is generate a secure application key. So we're going to add that in there. And then what we're going to do next is kind of repeat that command of, okay, Docker compose run, turn the welcome message off. And then we're just going to run the database migrations. Now what's cool is you can drag and drop these in order. But we're going to make sure we generate our key first and then do our artisan command to run the migration. And then we have another command that we need to run where we're going to do an initialization command. And that's just going to do some extra things that we wrote specifically for our demo app. And so this makes it nice and easy because all we have to do is hit auto start application after install. And you'll see in a little bit, when your customer gets this single command to just paste into their VPS server, it's going to make it very easy for them to run your application without even knowing which commands need to be run. So this is kind of giving you like a very disposable and repeatable and single source of truth on how you want things to be executed and started on installation. So now that I have this available, I can just come in here and choose what I want to test. So this is exactly what the customer will see. And then I can generate a short-lived script if needed to kind of paste this into my own environment. But let me show you the full experience from the customer side of things so that you can see the full picture and see what they will be going through. All right, let's switch hats and see what it looks like from the customer's perspective upon checkout. So here is a Stripe product. I'm just using a Stripe payment link. And let me just put in server-side up demo@gmail.com. And we're going to complete our order. And naturally, they'll go check their email. So if we switch over to our email, you can see that I just received an email that says that my access to my example app is now ready. Now the cool thing with this is it also gives the links that we configured before all down in here in case they need to reach out for support, but they also do not need to create a user account at all. So if I hit install example, it's going to bring me to a common page that the user, based off their email address, will have access to all the products they purchase on Self-Host Pro. So even if they purchase from another business that also uses Self-Host Pro, all of their products will be on this one simple page. And you can see the example app that I bought is only available for 1 year for me. So it's very clear on how long you have access to things. And when I click on this, it's going to bring a variety of options. By default, we show them the simplest installation example, which I'll show you. And it gives them, okay, you need to provision with any VPS. They give them trusted VPS providers. The coolest thing is that they can use any version of Linux, because when we give them this script, it's going to install Docker using their official Docker installation script, which supports any variation of Linux. And then it also gives them what you configured on your settings as a SaaS owner of what size of hardware they need. So that's very easy for them to get started. Now, let's say that you have somebody who's running an advanced home lab. Let's say they have Kubernetes clusters or something like that. We also automatically share the same information from before, but give them the advanced steps of, hey, you need to authenticate with the Docker registry. You need to create a token. Here's the Docker Compose file that works, and maybe they adapt this to a Kubernetes config, and then it shows the environment variable file that we had in there, what permissions, what file level they need to be at, as well as the initialization command. So this could be for somebody who's a little bit more opinionated on their setup, that we can still share the access with them. And then to make it nice and easy, if you do any sort of version gating between version 1, version 2, whatever you have, this is very helpful because it shows exactly what images are available. So let's say like 1.0.1 comes out, but that breaks. They could still go back to this page and fall back to the version that worked for them, and they can see everything that they have access to here. And then if they need any extra help, we put in all those links to help them guide you to either your support channel or your communities so that they can meet other people who purchase the product. So in this example, let's go to hetzner.com and let's just fire up a simple server here. Now, it doesn't take much for a server to run most applications, and thankfully we can go here, let's drop down, let's just drop into a US-based data center, and we can get a 2-core, 2 gig server for very little money. And they can pick any Linux distro that they'd like, since Docker runs on everything. And we'll just set up my SSH key and get this server running. Now, while this server is starting up, let's just take a look at what our next steps are. So we provision our server, we have that all ready to go. And now we just need to do SSH root at my IP address. So if I just switch to my terminal, do SSH root at my IP. Yes, I do want to connect to this server. And let's take a look. If we just clear this out, we can look at our short-lived installation script. Now, this is designed to make it very easy for the customer to just copy and paste, and it will do everything for them, but it's also designed to protect the SaaS developer as well. So there's a lot of tamper protection against this. It locks it down when they run this. Only this one IP address can run this since we're exchanging credentials. But you can see the experience of it. It gives it a nice white labeled experience of running its pre-flight checks here, and then it's going to install Docker and get everything ready for us. And then we'll start to see where it's going to start creating the skeleton of our application. So we're going to create everything under the SRV, since this is the example app, it's SRV example. And then it's going to pull the compose file down, get the env going. But this is very interesting on how this works. Now, since we checked that little box before that said, let's prompt for the app URL, I could, if I wanted to, do https app.example.com, and this would work, but the user would have to take extra steps, right? They would have to register a domain name, they would have to know how to configure a DNS record, things like that. But we default to just using an IP address just to get them up and running. This could be an internal IP, or we just default to using their external IP of if they were to run this on something like DigitalOcean or Hetzner. And that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to press enter. But the cool thing is that since we're using Caddy in our project, we're able to issue what are called short-lived SSL certificates. So they will get an SSL issued for their IP address without getting any sort of weird warnings. So I'll show you that soon. But moving forward, we're taking the server-side up demo at gmail.com. We're logging into the private registry, and this user will only have access to these images as long as it's within their access window or they have an active subscription. So as soon as that expires, they no longer get updates. So as a SaaS developer, you're continuing to push images. This user still gets that buy once and own the data, but they won't get any updates. So you can configure a product for them to upgrade and it will extend their access. Now looking at the remainder of this, we're just running all of our key generation for the app, we're running our migrations, we're running our initialization command, which is just going to seed a simple database table. And then it gives us a nice little simple, like, hey, here's our website, here's how to reach out for help, here's our community, things like that. And also some basic things of like how to start a service, view the logs, things that will be very helpful for debugging. But we can just copy this URL, open this up and paste it, and notice that we go direct into our web application. This is a trusted SSL that is issued by Let's Encrypt. And now we can see exactly on how to, or this is actually pulling from our database that we had before where we seeded it. And now this app is ready to be up and running and they can start configuring the application and inserting their own data. We built Self-Host Pro because we needed it ourselves and we're actively shipping our own products on it. Follow along to see the features we have planned next. If you're struggling to ship a self-hosted application, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help you get started. Links for everything are below, and we're so grateful to have you follow along. Thanks.